So Sheriff Gregory Tony is up for re-election, and evidently now you know he pissed off the troops because there's a vote of no confidence. So we know that they're not happy with him, and part of the reason that the ground pounders are not happy with the sheriff over there is because he's been, applying a little pressure. Some of it a little too late, in my opinion. He finally did fire the officer who slammed that black kid's head into the pavement, who was part of that group over at McDonald's some months ago. Well, oh, Fanta, what? He resigned? Gregory Tony, did he resign? Did he buckle? Is that what I'm seeing? Because listen, that might be breaking news right there. The last thing I know is they were posting pictures of him swinging and talking about him not revealing that he had smoked. I mean, not smoke. I don't know what he did. LSD. I don't use it, so I don't know. Do you? What do you do? Drop a tab on your tongue? What do you do with LSD? I don't know about that, but I know he used it as a juvie. He used LSD when he was 16, and he also committed a murder when he was a juvie that he was found not guilty of. Oh, Fanta, you asked. Listen, you got me all excited. I thought you were telling me he resigned. Okay, you were just asking. No, because you know what? He's kind of arrogant. He don't really believe that a pig's ass is pork just yet. They're gonna convince him of it eventually, I think. And so, he it is now known that he used LSD when he was a 16-year-old. He also committed a murder. Now, what happened in the murder is that someone came to his house to fight him and his brother. I think that's how the story went. And he went into the house because he knew where his dad kept a gun. And he went in the house and got the gun, Florida, stand your ground. And he shot this person because he said it was self-defense and this person was going to hurt him and his brother, or either him or his brother. So he killed this kid. Okay, self-defense, he was acquitted. Problem is this: when he applied to be a police officer over in Coral Springs, because that's where he was before he went to Broward County. He was a sergeant in Coral Springs. Now we know when he filled out his job application for Coral Springs, he didn't tell them anything about that old LSD use, and they asked specifically, according to reports I've read, have you ever used any drugs? They asked specifically, do you have a juvenile record? Have you been convicted of any crime, any time? And he not only didn't disclose it, he said negatory, negative, did not, wasn't me. And so now we know this because people are putting all his business out. They are just spilling tea left and right over there in Broward County. I think because there's an election coming up, there's a primary to be held in August, and the sheriff who was ousted, Scott Israel, is also vying for this position, his old job. Gregory Tony is vying for that position. He was appointed by Greg DeSantis. And so let me just say this while I'm being messy. You know, Gregory Tony is a swinger, and evidently he belongs to some club that's really exclusive. There's a lot of high-powered people, politicians, allegedly, judges, and who knows what else in this group. And so you almost have to leave a pint of blood at the door in order to be accepted. It's that exclusive, and I guess they must get down really like wild, like, right? So you can just be you. Well, somebody leaked those pictures, and now we know that he's a part of it. Greg DeSantis appointed him as sheriff when he ran. Greg DeSantis, the governor, Republican, ran Scott Israel out on a rail because they were upset about everything that went down at that school shooting over there. It's Marjorie Denman High School where the mass shooting occurred. So they were unhappy with Scott Israel, ran him out. The way the story goes, what I've read, is that Gregory Tony worked out at a gym with one of the fathers of one of the young people who was killed. Now I'm wondering, is this father a swinger? Is that how he knows Gregory Tony too? Because Greg DeSantis did not do his due diligence. He did not vet Gregory Tony. He just gave him the homie hookup, brought him over from Coral Springs as a sergeant, made him the sheriff in Broward County. So that's why Gregory is running for election now, because he was just appointed, replacing Scott Israel, the sheriff at the time. He wasn't vetted, and now we know he committed a damn murder as a juvie. He was using LSD as a minor. and he is a swinger, and there's all these pictures. Now, he said in his arrogance, I think he thinks in his white arrogance, they can remind him, dude, you're not really white. But okay, go ahead, sir. He said, is it a crime? Is swinging a crime? So you got pictures. So what? We're going to see what's going to happen. So here's what I think about Gregory Tony family. I don't know. I just think if he lied on his application to get hired in Coral Springs in the first place, and he retired from Coral Springs to go over and be the sheriff in Broward County, all of this stuff that they are now finding out about him on his application, lying, it's a felony for a police officer to be caught lying, and they can prove it. That's a problem. And so anybody and everybody, I think there's liability galore involved in this. Everybody and anybody who's been involved in any kind of police matter with Gregory Tony's name on it as the arresting officer when he was over at Coral Springs, as the approving supervisor, if that's what he did over in Coral Springs, anything with his name on it is tainted because he lied to get hired. They would never have hired him in Coral Springs to be a police officer if they had known he used LSD, had committed a murder. They would have never hired him. Is his pension in jeopardy? I'm just wondering. I'm just asking. Maybe there's some attorneys out there who might, be able to answer these questions for somebody else. Anybody who has ever, in the history of ever, been arrested by Gregory Tony in Coral Springs when he was a police officer. I think there's a whole lot of get out of jail free cards. I think there's a whole lot of records about to get expunged, wiped clean, whatever term you want to use, because he's a liar. He's a proven liar. And that means, did he lie on the arrest reports? And that's why police officers like Daniel Pantaleo are ineffective. Remember when the commissioner said that? He let Pantaleo go, not because he choked Eric Garner to death, not because he used a prohibited chokehold, but because he was ineffective. And I said then, Pantaleo was ineffective because he lied. When a police officer lies, when you're found guilty of giving what they call false and misleading statements, that means you can't be a cop. You can never make an arrest. You can never go to court. Okay, Debbie, you can hear me now. I'm happy about that. Thanks for letting me know. When a police officer is found guilty administratively of giving false statements, that means you can never go to court and raise your hand and swear under the penalty of perjury to any criminal activity. You can't be trusted. And if a good district attorney gets a hold of your personnel records and finds out that you were a proven liar, you're ineffective. You're ineffective. You can't be a cop. You can't make arrests. So, Florida, how many of y'all over there have been arrested by Gregory Tony when he was working for the Coral Springs Police Department? Because if you have been arrested by Gregory Tony, even if you've already done your time, I would say look for a good attorney, maybe get a damn class action lawsuit going, and look to see if you can't get you a mansion and a yacht. You guys know I'm all about the mansion and the yacht, right? So he's got a problem in Coral Springs. Maybe Coral Springs might say you are ineligible to receive a pension, sir. And all that money that we've been paying you every month for a pension that you didn't deserve, because had we known, had you not lied, we would never have hired you. And I'm just wondering, as I'm talking to you now, family, does that mean that every dollar he earned as a police officer, could they try to recoup that? I don't know. I got questions, family. I got questions. And I think Sheriff Tony has got some splaining to do. That's on Coral Springs. Okay, now let's take a look at Broward County. Now that he's on Broward County, because Broward County said, if Governor DeSantis had done his job and vetted him, we would have never given him the top cop spot. We would not have made him the highest law enforcement officer in our county had we known he used LSD, he being Gregory Tony. Had we known he committed murder, we would not have given him the job as the sheriff in Broward County. So that's a problem, I think. That's a problem. Roy, what are you asking me? So what do you mean the guy looked out of place in the neighborhood? Was he up in a tree? Roy, I didn't say nothing about a tree. What are you talking about, sir? What are you? What are you talking about, Roy? Tell me what you're talking about so I can try to answer this riddle, because I don't know. I have no idea what you're talking about. I'll get back to you, Roy, in a minute. But yeah, Gregory Tony, he's got some splaining to do. That's all I'm gonna say. And I don't think that he's gonna be reelected unless those folks over there in Florida. No, I don't, Roy. I don't know about a tree. He's out of place in the neighborhood. Well, are you talking about the fact that Gregory Tony doesn't realize he's a black man? Is it because he's married to a white woman? He thinks that somehow just through osmosis he too is white? Is that what you're getting at? Roy, you being messy, sir. But I approve. So anyway, Gregory Tony, yeah, he's got some explaining to do. And I just think there's liability all around his name. And I think that unless the state of Florida got a whole bunch of money, I don't know, maybe they may want to rethink, do we even want to waste our time with him? Because he's bringing not little pieces of roll-on luggage. He's got a damn whole fucking, oops. He's got a lot of luggage. He's got a lot of luggage, a lot of baggage he's bringing with him. And so I think it would just be so much easier for Florida to get a sheriff who ain't a swinger, who doesn't use LSD, and who never murdered anybody. I'm just thinking it probably wouldn't be too hard to find a candidate who's never used LSD, who's never murdered anybody, and who's not a swinger with pictures of, him and others grabbing parts that, we shouldn't see our sheriff grabbing. Anyway, that's just my thought. Okay, Roy, you said some police chief said that folks look out of place. Yeah, okay, so I get it. Yeah, he looks out of place, and he is out of place. So I'm going to keep my ear to the ground because this is so messy, and I'm here for it. I'll let you know what happens with Gregory Tony. Now, let me talk a little bit about Ahmaud Arbery, family, because there is much being said. There is so much going on. This story is ever evolving, and you know what the bottom line is, right? Folks are trying to besmirch this young man's character, dirty him up in the court of public opinion, and truthfully, understand this. It makes no never mind what Ahmaud Arbery did previously. There's a video going around of him allegedly stealing a television out of some Walmart or some store, and we know that he didn't steal the TV because he wasn't arrested for shoplifting the television. So what is the purpose and the benefit of putting that video, that encounter with the police officer, out there, but for to make folks who are going to be potential jurors when this thing goes to trial think somehow that Ahmaud Arbery deserved to be killed as he jogged through a middle-class white area, or maybe not even middle class, maybe high-end rent district. What's that all about? But they're trying to dirty up this kid. So that's one of the videos out there. Now I just saw there's another new video. He was in the park, and an officer came upon him in the park, and this one is really disturbing to me because he didn't have a reason to stop him. Ahmaud didn't have a license. It was suspended. Okay, there's a lot of folks who drive around on suspended licenses. I'm here to tell you, I've stopped a few myself. I understand why the officer wouldn't let Ahmaud drive away. That makes sense to me because if Ahmaud had driven away and gotten in a car accident, then the officer who had just stopped him would be liable for anyone who may have been hurt should he get involved in a traffic accident. But the problem is that they're showing it again as if to infer, here's yet another example of this young man who somehow deserved to die while he was out jogging. And so that's what this is all about. And then when you see the video in the park, you see this goober, Officer Goober. I don't know who the hell, I don't know his real name. I'm just saying Officer Goober. He comes up at, the tail end of the damn thing, and he wants to tase Ahmaud because why? He said Ahmaud, he could look at him and he could see veins in his chest. I don't know. Do you have veins in your chest? I don't know. I've never seen veins in the chest. I've seen veins pop on people's forehead, when they get mad and hot and bothered and they may be thinking about doing something stupid, challenging, fighting with a police officer, veins in your neck. But this joker said that he could see the veins in Ahmaud's chest popping and bulging, and somehow that let him know that Ahmaud was thinking about getting aggressive, that he was going to maybe try to fight the officer. And so before the officer would let that happen, he was trying to tase him. And so you see him take out the taser, you hear the taser clicking, but his dumb ass didn't know how to work the damn thing. He's just holding it and holding it. I don't know if any darts popped out, but it was clicking. He just looked stupid, standing there clicking the damn thing. And then he says to Ahmaud, down, like he's a dog. Ahmaud was actually in the process of going down. He was complying with the officer's demands. The officer lied, like some will do, and say that he was threatening him, and that's why he tried to tase him. And so when a supervisor, it sounds like, showed up, asked Goober, so you tased him? And he said, well, I tried to, but it didn't seem to go off. And so they ultimately had to let him go. They let Ahmaud go. They let him walk away. They wouldn't let him drive because he didn't have a license. I'm okay with that. But why are you showing it now, Georgia? Why are you showing it now? But to dirty this young man up. None of that stuff matters. It has nothing to do with the price of tea in China. Nothing to do with that shooting. And so if you guys want to dirty some folks up, let's talk a little bit, shall we? As I check my records, let's talk a little bit about Greg McMichael, the father. Roy, what are you saying? There was a tall black kid seen running in Sacramento, so the stupid people in Brunswick decided that they would chase down. Okay, can't read all of your comment. If you're talking about the incident in Sacramento with Stephon Clark, where he was chased down. Well, listen, I think, Roy, they just did it because, you know, that's what they do and they get away with it. You know, they lie and they say that they felt threatened or they thought they saw something that they didn't really see and they shot. And then they just say, my bad. And nothing ever really happens. And so, you know, you're going to get me on another tangent because in Georgia, the Georgia state attorney is asking William Barr, U.S. state attorney, to investigate this case. How many of you guys, I'd like to see a show of hands, think William Barr is going to even come a little bit close to investigating the civil rights case involving Ahmaud Arbery? Anybody? Yeah, me either. But let's talk a little bit about Greg McMichael, the father. Now, you know, the father used to work for that police department there in Glynn County. He was a police officer there. And he was only a police officer there for a little bit. And it's interesting to me that now we know, because there's evidence of a text message being sent by another Glynn County police officer to the owner of the house. Larry English is his name. And said, hey, if you have any problems, if you got any concerns about your house, because Larry English lives 2 hours away, the Glynn County cop says, call over and get a hold of Greg McMichael. Good guy. Good guy. Get a hold of him and he'll know what to do. Because Greg McMichael was an officer for a little while. And if you look at Greg McMichael's record while he was there, he was only there for a minute. And then he left. He left and he went and he became a beer salesman. And then he became a boat salesman. And then he decided to come back, and that's when he started working in the DA's office, because he must have been, I'm assuming, I'm guessing, that he probably was inept, unqualified, ill-suited to be a police officer. And so they ushered him on to another profession. He moved around from police department to police department, and he worked 2 months here, 3 months there, and then he wound up at the DA's office. Now, while he was at the DA's office, it's reported that he never even qualified. He didn't do the things that he was required to do through their post, police officer standards and training, in order to maintain his certification. And so the district attorney, Jackie Johnson, the same district attorney who knew about this shooting when it happened and did nothing, she dissuaded the Glynn County police officers, a captain or somebody over there, from even investigating the shooting the night that it occurred. So this Jackie Johnson, this DA, has known that Greg McMichael is a wingnut for a long time. She has covered and coddled him. She wrote letters to the post police officers standards and training unit to say, I know he hasn't been keeping up with his training. My bad. I'll make sure that he does in the future. And she still didn't. He went about 4 years as an investigator in the district attorney's office, and he was not certified. So she says, okay, well, let's do this. He won't carry a gun. How about that? He won't carry a gun. He won't make arrests. He won't drive, city or county vehicles. What's with DA Jackie Johnson? Why is she so invested in Greg McMichael? What is that relationship all about, that she would put herself on the line for him over and over and over? I want to know what that's all about. So she allows him to stay on the job, and he was there for years, many of which he was not certified to be a DA investigator. And if you don't know this, let me remind you, and I'm going to continue to say this as they continue to show videos. Not only did he have to leave the Glynn County Police Department because he was probably inept and run out on a rail, not only was he not certified and able to act with full authority as a district attorney, but while he was a district attorney, he was partnered with the son of the previous DA who had been assigned to take a look at this shooting. His name is Barnhill. DA Barnhill also had to recuse himself because Greg McMichael was a partner investigator with Barnhill's son, who is also a DA investigator. These two knuckleheads were partnered together when Ahmaud Arbery was a juvenile and had taken a gun to school. And the DA's office investigated it, and Ahmaud was eventually, as a result of the investigation done by their investigators, McMichael and Barnhill's son, Ahmaud was put on probation for 5 years. So you understand, know this and hear what I'm saying. There is history between Ahmaud Arbery and the Glynn County Police Department. They know him. Greg McMichael knows Ahmaud. He was the investigator who ultimately put Ahmaud on probation. And so here's what I think, family. Here's what I think. It's just my gut. It's just my gut. I think Greg McMichael, being a piss poor investigator, did the best that he could, and probably that wasn't enough, and maybe that's why Ahmaud was given 5 years probation. Maybe it was because he was a juvie and didn't have a prior record. I don't know, but I think Greg McMichael kind of seems like the kind of guy that would get personally invested in a black man not getting the kind of penalty, criminal penalty, not putting this young man in the system and making sure that he got what he had coming in the mind of Greg McMichael. So I think Greg McMichael, having this history with Ahmaud, Glynn County Police Department having this history with Ahmaud, we know that they stopped him in the park. He was just hanging out in the park, relaxing. The guy came up, wanted to tase him, couldn't arrest him for anything. He sent him on his way. Then they encountered him at some kind of Walmart, accused him of shoplifting a 65-inch television. How the hell do you you stick it in your pants? Where, in the front, in the back? Where the hell do you hide a 65-inch television to shoplift it? And so they stopped him. They accused him of it. Some other white man is seen on the video saying absolutely for sure this kid did this. And then if you look on that video, you see them tell the kids, it was 4 of them together, Ahmaud and 3 others. And you see them tell the kids to sit on the ground, get on the ground. And then he tells them to lay down on your stomach like a dog, like you would a dog, like he finally did hunt him down in February like a dog and shot him. So they told him to lay down on his stomach, and he said, oh man, I'm not laying on my stomach. That's what I'm not going to do. And so eventually, after they, kept him as long as they could, guess what, family? They let him go. Why? Well, because he wasn't shoplifting, because they couldn't prove he was shoplifting. No matter how many white men pulled up on the scene to say that these black boys were stealing a 65-inch TV, they didn't have enough to arrest him for shoplifting. So they let him go. There's history, family. That police department knows who Ahmaud Arbery is. And I think they were bothered by the fact that they have been trying their very best, which probably wasn't good enough, clearly, to get this young man in the system. That's what police departments, by and large, are there to do, is put our young black people in the system by hook or by crook. And so they were unsuccessful. The closest they could get with Ahmaud was 5 years probation. So Greg McMichael sees him running through the neighborhood. He knows exactly who he is. He's seen him before. He's been responsible for putting him on probation. That means he was probably at court, had to testify. They know who this kid is. He sees him running through the neighborhood and he's like, there's that N-word. There he is. Travis, get your gun. Travis is his son, for those of you who don't know. Travis, get your gun. We're going to go get this N-word. We're going to deal with this N-word finally, once and for all. And then they call old dumbass Roddy and said, Roddy, get the camera. We might need an extra car, Roddy. Come on with us. And see if you can't corral this N-word. See if you can't block him in. See if you can't stop him. And we're going to deal with this ass. Not now, but right now. And so Roddy grabbed his camera and his little pea shooter, and they start pursuing this baby. And they chased him. And he was running. And he was trying to get away. And then they said that he was picking up speed. Well, he's on fucking foot. How much faster can he run? Can he outrun a truck? Can he outrun 2 cars? If he could shift into turbo speed, it still wasn't sufficient enough reason for them to say, now we get to shoot him. But that's what they did. And because they wanted to have a trophy, Roddy was recording it for later so they could probably sit down and have a beer and, you know, over dinner, you know, possum or whatever it is that they eat out there. They could relive that moment because they had memorialized it on video. And when they saw Ahmaud running and they had seen him in that house under construction before, and they tried to get the owner, they tried to get Larry English involved, and he's like, dude, I've seen him in there. I got ring. I called my friend Diego Perez, who lives up the street. I don't have a problem with that. If I lived 2 hours away and I wanted somebody to keep an eye on a house I had being built under construction, and I asked one of you, hey, if something goes on, just if I see something, I'll give you a call. Could you just run by and make sure everything is good? And that's what Larry English asked Diego Perez to do. He did that. And he didn't see anybody in the house, and he didn't see anything missing. And so, although they knew that someone, allegedly Ahmaud Arbery, had been in there, it wasn't a big deal for the owner. And so guess what? Greg McMichael and Jethro don't get to be victims for Larry English. They can't be bothered for Larry English. Larry English wasn't bothered. But they had history. They knew who Ahmaud Arbery was. They tried to get rid of this kid. They tried to put him in the system for stealing a 65-inch TV, and they couldn't. They tried to put him in the system by saying that he was in the park doing something untoward, and they couldn't. He helped them out by taking a gun to school foolishly, and they put him on probation, but that wasn't enough. They wanted more. And so on this day, they see him running down the street. Jethro, get your gun. I'm going to jump in the back of the truck. We're going to go get this N-word. And that's what they did. And they shot and they killed that baby. And so everything else that happened before then is irrelevant. It means nothing. It means nothing. But what does mean something is the fact that Greg McMichael worked as a DA investigator for years, being unqualified, not being post-certified, that Greg McMichael had to leave the Glynn County Police Department and went to several other departments and worked for a month, 2 months, 3 months. Who works on a police department for 3 months? Then you go sell beer. And then you come back and you go become a ranger and you work there for 30 days and then you go to the DA's office as a DA investigator. Red signs are all over his employment history. Red signs let you know something ain't right with this dude. And why does he want to be the police so damn bad that he would have a relationship with one of his cohorts, somebody he knew from that department, and say, hey, can you deputize me so if anything goes on in my neighborhood, you just tell folks to call me? And why would Glynn County take that on? I don't know. But I tell you what, Glynn County got problems. Glynn County PD got problems. And so right now, folks in Georgia, Senate Bill 504 is being considered. And that's a Senate bill that would completely disband, break up this inept police department. This band of misfit toys needs to be broken up. And Senate Bill 504 will do just that. It will disband the Glynn County Police Department. They're going to be voting on it. I believe it says here in the Capitol next month being June. And then it calls for it to be on the ballot as a referendum in November. So that lets you know that this police department is way whack, way whack. And we know this to be true because now we know. 4 days after Ahmaud Arbery had been shot, Glynn County Police Chief John Powell was indicted by a grand jury. 4 days after Ahmaud had been shot, the police chief was indicted by a grand jury because the GBI had been investigating that police department since February 2017. And in this investigation that finally was completed 4 days before Ahmaud was shot and sent to a grand jury, the police chief, John Powell, was indicted on 5 counts: violating oath, criminal attempt to commit felony, and as well as the police chief, there was a former public information officer on that department who is now a police chief on another agency. I think it's called Visalia Police Department. This guy went, because you know, that's what they do. Bad police officers move from department to department. They just move around like chess pieces, like, you know, the Catholic Church did priests. You mess up on one department, you get the gift of resignation, and then you go join another police department. Or if you have enough time, you resign and you go become a police chief on another department. And so that's what this guy did. He was a public information officer. His name is Brian Scott. Brian Scott is now the police chief in Visalia. And Brian Scott was also indicted along with police chief John Powell. Brian Scott was indicted for violation of oath as well, attempt to commit a felony, and influencing witnesses. And then there was another person, a police captain on the Glynn County Police Department. Now listen, it sounds to me like Glynn County is a small agency. I don't know how many officers are there, but I know several of them have been indicted in the last few months. And these are high-ranking officials because I tell you all the time, the fish rots from the head. Corruption, malfeasance, misconduct, it starts at the top. It's usually condoned and allowed, and then it just trickles down to the ground pounders, police officers, police sergeants, police lieutenants, right? So you have a captain, David Hassler, also indicted. 5 counts: violation of oath, perjury, and false statement. Remember, false statement, lying. So that means Captain David Hassler is also ineffective. And if any of you over there in Glynn County got any paperwork with David Hassler's name on it, you need a good attorney right about now. You need a good attorney. I tell you these names because I want you to make note of them, and I want you to do your due diligence, and I want you to know that if you have any legal matters involving any of the names of these people who have now found themselves in the crosshairs because finally their bad deeds have been made public, then you need a good attorney, and you need to say, hey, take a look at this paperwork and see if we can't do something about this, because now we know that this guy is a proven liar, been found guilty, been indicted. At the very least, if not found guilty criminally, he's certainly been indicted, and that makes him ineligible to be a police officer. Sergeant David Haney, also indicted, 4 counts. Violation of oath, 4 counts, false statements. Anybody with any paperwork with Sergeant David Haney, Haney, on the Glynn County Police Department, you need to get a good attorney. You about to get hooked up. Mansion and a yacht. Get out of jail free card, records expunged. Yeah, you need a good attorney. So all of this was going on, the Glynn County Police Department. So you guys understand how officers would stop Ahmaud Arbery anytime they want to, just because they don't like this kid, and because they could, because they knew that they had a police chief who was busy violating his oath and doing what the hell he was doing. He wasn't paying attention to what was going on in the field. You got a sergeant who's over there violating his oath. He should be out there supervising and managing these uses of forces and these incidents when the officers roll out on a man who's accused of stealing a 55-inch, 65-inch television. He should have been out there to see. Tell me, show me how this kid shoved his TV in his pants. I want to know. I've not seen this before. But he was too busy violating his oath and giving false statements. So Glynn County Police Department is a hot mess. And that's why they're looking to disband it, break it down, make it go bye-bye. And if you guys are as bothered by Glynn County Police Department as I am, I don't even live in Glynn County. I ain't never heard of Glynn County. But if I could vote to disband this police department, I certainly would. And I hope you will too. So ain't no need in us getting mad and jumping up and down and talking about how bad it is and have you seen this? And listen, family, I love you like a cousin. I appreciate you reaching out to me. I got some of you that are calling me, you know, from the 501 area code or 510 area code. Yeah, you call me regularly, sir. I appreciate your frustration. Thank you for sharing all that you share with me. You know, I look and follow up on things that maybe I haven't heard of that you are sharing with me so that I can come and share it with the rest of the family and talk about it. But ain't no need in us just being mad about it. Yeah, it's lies. That's what they do. They lie. Because they expect in about 48 hours, you guys are going to be wondering what little Tink Tink is doing and whether or not he's about to let you go get your hair done and your nails done. And you won't even be thinking about this. But guess who can't change channels? Ahmaud Arbery's family. They can't change channels. They don't get to move on. They don't get to look at the next shiny object that they're waving in front of our face, because Ahmaud Arbery, sadly, is not the last one. He's not the last one. And every time something happens, family, we think, my God, it can't get any worse. I know I do, and I'm sure that I'm not alone in it. I thought, you know, when we saw Eric Garner get choked on his public street, that my God, when we saw a 12-year-old baby get shot playing in a park, my God, it can't get any worse than that. And then we see our sister get pulled over by a police officer because she's trying to do him a solid and get the hell out of his way so he can drive by, and he pulls her over and creates a reason to exacerbate the situation, escalate it to a use of force, go tag that police department, that jail, because you know I don't think Sandra Bland hung herself. I say it all the time and I'll continue to say it. That officer, Brian Encinia, tagged that detention officer. And Sandra probably didn't do herself any favors. She probably wasn't quiet when she got in there because she figured, I'm just in here on a chicken shit arrest, $500 bail. I'll be out of here in a minute. And when her family wasn't able to make it because they're trying to make arrangements from another state, probably not familiar with the procedure and policy, took a little bit longer. And then we know what happened. They said she hung herself. I don't believe it. I don't believe it. My God. What else could happen? How worse could it get? And then it goes on and on. Walter Scott gets out of his car, runs from the police because he got a couple of warrants. Don't want to go to jail. That's inherent to police work. People run from us all the time. I can't tell you how many jokers ran from me when I was on LAPD, when I was working the gang detail. I had gangsters run from me left and right. And eventually some of them got to know, if you run from Dorsey, you probably gonna get away, because guess what? I don't chase folks. Because I also understand that sometimes suspects run because they just want to see if you're going to come looking for them. They're going to see if you catch them. And then when you ask them, like I have in the beginning when I used to get that exercise, what the heck are you running for? I didn't jump 2 fences and slid under a car, messed up my shiny shoes, tore my $100 wool uniform pants, and then I asked her, why the hell did you run? Oh, Sarge, I just, you know, wanted to see if he was going to come after me. Or officer. I wasn't a sergeant. When I was a sergeant, I quit chasing folks. But they just want to see if you'll catch them. They want to see if you're going to run. We called it felony running. Folks just take off running for no damn reason. Felony running. And they just want to, they looking back like a damn gazelle on the Serengeti, trying to see if you coming after them. Yeah, I don't chase folks. That's not what I do. I'll get you tomorrow because you live here and I work here. That's how I am. Now we're at a place where you run from the police, they just shoot you. They just kill you, because you know what I say. If a police officer shoots you and kills you, there's only one version. It's the one that they tell. He was reaching for my taser. He was reaching for my gun. I thought he had a gun. He was not complying. He was being uncooperative. I saw veins popping up in his chest. That's what they do. That's what they do for people who look like me and some of you. And so ain't no need of you getting mad and stomping around town, and if you're not going to take the action that's necessary to really make substantive change. It's good to be mad, but there needs to be action behind that madness, because otherwise this stuff is going to continue to go on. And I started speaking out on this family back in 2014 when Eric Garner jumped off, and everything that's happened since. I've seen nothing, sadly, change. Nothing. I've seen no improvements. I've not seen things get better. I've heard politicians who look like me and those who don't look like me, who give great word salad statements about what they want to do and happen, and you know, if you elect me, I'm gonna do this, and this has got to stop. And guess what? It hasn't stopped. It hasn't stopped. But you have control over that, because every police chief serves at the pleasure of a mayor. Others are elected, like sheriffs. Others are appointed by city managers, who are appointed by elected officials like commissioners and stuff like that. And so listen, while it's not going to take one thing to fix this, it's going to take many steps. And so y'all need to roll up your damn sleeves, you know, like you stand in line for the Nikes and the damn iPhone 11 waiting on the 17 to come out. You need to have that same kind of determination when it comes to getting these jackasses out of office, like this police captain over in Glynn County who just got indicted. Police chief who just got indicted. That police chief didn't just start messing up. They've been looking at his ass. GBI been looking at his ass since 2017. So that means he's been screwing up for a long, long time. And that means somebody knew, because he wasn't screwing it by himself, because he wasn't indicted by himself. So there's a whole lot of people looking the other way. And there's a whole lot of you letting them look the other way. So unless and until you're ready to start holding folks' feet to the fire, then you really have nothing to say. Unless and until you're ready to, yeah, go vote, get in that ballot box, you have nothing to say. And if you don't like the person or persons that are going to be on the ticket in November, if you can't hold your nose and vote for whoever, anybody blue, no matter who, is what I'm all about. If you're not ready to change this administration because you understand that with William Barr as the U.S. Attorney General, we will never get justice. We will never have a murder of one of our brothers, our children, our fathers, our mothers, grandmothers, sisters investigated because of a civil rights violation under this administration, under Attorney General Barr. If you don't think that voting to get his ass out of there is reason enough to vote, if you don't think that voting to change the dynamics on the Supreme Court is enough of a reason to vote, because listen, RBG is a trooper. She is notorious. She is holding on. She is doing her part. She is not going to live forever and is reported to talk about retiring in 3 years. So that means that for sure there's going to be at least one Supreme Court appointment that the next president is going to make. At least one, maybe more. And right now the Supreme Court is 5-4 conservative. You guys go fuck around and have an entirely conservative Supreme Court. And if that shit happens, I promise you, it's going to affect not only your grandchildren, but your great-grandchildren. And so listen, you need to figure out what's important. Nike tennis shoes, iPhone 11, or the generations that follow. What's going to happen to your children when you're gone? Our children, my grandchildren. I hesitate to say this, but I'm a great-grandmother. I'm a great-grandmother because I was a child bride. Don't judge me. I'm worried about my great-grandson. I'm worried about, is somebody going to try to put him in the system and put him on probation for some bullshit and then not do it, or not have him on probation long enough and see him running around through a neighborhood somewhere that's been gentrified and they think, did we get rid of y'all? Y'all still up in here? Let's go chase his ass down and get your truck, get your camera, and shoot my great-grandson. I'm worried about that. And I hope you guys are too. And so that's why I come to you and I share with you what I share with you, not just because I want to stir the pot and rile you up, but I want you to take action. I want you to do it for me. I want you to do it for you. I want you to do it for these families. I want you to stand in the gap for them, because they are just one person, one family, one mother, one father going against a machine, a police department, a bureaucracy. And it's tough. If you've never had this fight on your own, you have no idea how difficult it is. You've heard me talk about my trials and tribulations, and I'm just honorary and a fighter, and that's what I do. If you tell me no, then I must. But everybody's not built like me. I get that. And so I don't mind standing in the gap for these families. I don't mind saying the things that Ahmaud Arbery's family don't know to say about these bullshit ass police stops, these detentions that mean nothing in the big scheme of things, as they try to dirty this baby up. And I call him a baby because, I got children his age, and, he can be my little baby. He's a grown ass man. I get that. But he can be my baby. And so I want to just give those families the words. And sadly, there's another family out there who hasn't been affected. Because listen, it may not be you now, but you might be next. You might be next. And so I want to give you the words so that you know what to say if and when, God forbid, you ever find yourself on the back end of an errant police officer who used deadly force as a first resort rather than a last resort. And his word is the only one that's left standing because your mother, brother, father, son, sister was killed. And the officer said, and because great deference is given to what an officer says, generally, it's taken as gospel. And if the police department has a problem with it, then they'll go into the coffers and they'll grab some city taxpayer money, and they'll throw a few buckets at the family, and they'll change nothing. We got to stop this, family. We got to stop it. And we have to do it. We can't depend on anybody else to do it for us. And if you don't get excited and interested about it, then understand, why would anybody else? Generations are depending on us to get this right. And so I hope we do. And so I just wanted to come to you in the midst of me, trying to save distance and have a good time while I'm out here. I'm being very safe. I'm being very careful. And thank you to all of you who have been wishing me safe travels, making sure that I am being safe, wanting me to have a good time in the midst of all that. I appreciate you. And so thank you, Facebook family. Thank you to my YouTube subbies. I love you, love you, love you. Thank you to everyone who has been so supportive.